This is not breaking news. This is not a scandal. This is not about one country choosing sides. This is about something quieter, more dangerous. A system that still looks stable right up until the moment it isn't. What you're watching is not a confrontation. It's a recalibration, a slow, methodical reweighting of power, pressure, and dependence. On the surface, everything still functions. Ports operate, markets trade, diplomats smile. But underneath, the incentives have shifted. Security is being redefined. Neutrality is being priced. And sovereignty is no longer a principle, it's a variable. This isn't about who is right. It's about who can apply pressure longest. And here's the part that matters. Once a system starts absorbing pressure unevenly, it doesn't fail loudly. It bends, it adapts, and then it locks itself into a path that's very hard to exit. If you want to understand how that happens and why it rarely looks dangerous until it's too late, stay with me, because what comes next explains who actually controls the system now. And it isn't who you think. What actually controls the system now isn't ideology. It isn't values, and it isn't loyalty. It's leverage. Not dramatic leverage, quiet leverage, the kind that doesn't announce itself until the choice is narrow. In this system, power no longer comes from commanding outcomes. It comes from shaping constraints, from deciding which options remain affordable and which ones quietly disappear. Security is no longer guaranteed. It's conditional. Trade is no longer mutual. It's calibrated. And neutrality doesn't protect you, it exposes you. What looks like independence on paper becomes dependence in practice, because every decision carries a price tag someone else gets to set. This is how control works now. Not through occupation, through exposure, exposure to markets, exposure to supply chains, exposure to narratives that redefine legitimacy. And once a system accepts this logic, it stops asking, what do we want? It starts asking, what can we afford to resist? That shift is subtle, but irreversible. Because once leverage replaces trust, every move becomes reactive. And that's where the real danger begins. When the system still believes it's choosing, even as the choices are being pre-selected, the most dangerous shifts never announce themselves. They arrive slowly. They normalize. There was a time when alignment was explicit. You chose, you declared, you accepted the consequences. Now, alignment happens without a vote, without a speech, without a moment you can point to and say, asterisk, that's when it changed asterisk. Before, cooperation was episodic, transactional, limited. Now it's continuous, routinized, embedded into calendars, logistics, and operational habits. What used to be exceptional becomes procedural. What used to raise alarms becomes background noise. And that's the shift most people miss. Because nothing collapses, nothing explodes. Institutions keep functioning, but the baseline moves, exercises become familiar, coordination becomes expected, presence becomes normal. And once something feels normal, questioning it feels disruptive, even irresponsible. That's how systems drift, not toward crisis, but toward commitment. The change isn't sudden, it's cumulative. And by the time the consequences become visible, the system has already invested too much to reverse course. That's the trap. Because when slow change finally produces shock, it doesn't look like a new decision. It looks like an unavoidable outcome. A fleet appeared where it hadn't before, ships from faraway powers converging on a single point, not for ceremony, not for inspection. The first signs were subtle radios buzzing, logistics movements, supply chains quietly rerouted. Then came the announcements. Exercises scheduled, names changed, partners added. Each adjustment looked small. Each seemed routine until the pattern became unmistakable. What matters isn't the hardware, it's the signal. Presence becomes precedent. Coordination becomes expectation. A new baseline is established without a declaration of intent. Local authorities claim safety. Global watchers claim reassurance. But the reality is harder. Every ship, every maneuver, every schedule shift adds pressure. Not on paper, but on the choices available. Options shrink. And that's when panic starts quietly. When yesterday's neutrality no longer buys you tomorrow's freedom. When defensive measures feel inadequate because the system can absorb small shocks. It can even absorb large ones. But when a pattern emerges, it exposes the vulnerabilities of the unprepared. And at this point, the first casualties aren't people. They are flexibility. They are freedom to maneuver. If you think this is distant, consider the stakes. Every misstep now ripples far beyond borders. The system doesn't operate like it looks. It isn't about formal alliances. It isn't about treaties. It isn't about statements and press conferences. Control flows through leverage, exposure, and signaling. Economic dependence is the first layer. Strategic messaging is the second. Legal and procedural tools form the third. Some actors gain influence without firing a shot. They profit from instability, from ambiguity, from the quiet rearrangement of incentives. Others absorb the damage. Jobs vanish. Markets tighten. Decisions are constrained before they're made. The costs land on those least equipped to bear them. Every movement, every handshake, every ship's arrival is filtered through this mechanism. It magnifies certain actions and punishes others. It operates invisibly until the consequences are undeniable. This is why the pattern is so hard to detect. The system looks like cooperation. It sounds like diplomacy. It even feels like choice. But the reality is that power no longer resides in declarations. It resides in asterisk, who can make the system punish, reward, or deny options quietly, asterisk. And once this mechanism is engaged, even small miscalculations cascade. The system is not broken. It is operating exactly as intended. Another signal arrived. Not ships this time, policies, statements, moves on distant markets. Pressure applied where it hurts silently. Jobs at risk, aid reduced, tariffs rising. Every decision now carries weight. Every hesitation is visible. The system tightens, choices shrink. What once seemed optional is now impossible. The observers call it caution. Locals call it fear. Everyone senses that one misstep could trigger consequences far beyond comprehension. The presence of outsiders, once symbolic, is now operational. Coordination between distant powers happens faster than local responses. Signals amplify. Chains react. And the red lines aren't drawn on maps. They're drawn in policy texts, in economic dependencies, in public narratives. The stakes escalate before anyone acts. Before anyone can calculate the price, before anyone knows who will bend first. You feel it without realizing it. The choices made in distant capitals ripple into your life. Jobs vanish. Communities shrink. Confidence falters. Families worry about the next pay cut. Markets shake quietly, but the effect lands at home. Every shipment delayed, every tariff raised, touches you first. And yet, the system acts as if nothing changed. The operators of power count numbers and movements, not human faces. You experience the consequence before the decision makers feel it. It's personal. Even if it isn't named that way, you are part of a structure that doesn't see you. And the longer this goes on, the fewer choices you have to resist it. Still, there is a signal in what's happening. The patterns are visible if you look closely. The alliances forming, the pressures applied, the narrative spun, they all point to a single truth. Your world is no longer shaped locally. Understanding that truth is the first defense. The second is watching closely without blinking. Because if you don't, the system will decide for you. What happens in one port doesn't stay in that port. What seems local radiates outward. Every decision, every signal travels along invisible currents. Neighbors watch, competitors calculate, allies reconsider. A single movement in one region triggers reactions continents away. Policies in one capital produce shortages in another. Statements echo in boardrooms half a world away. The system no longer respects borders. It responds to leverage, not geography. Dependency and exposure multiply across chains, economic, political, symbolic. And these ripples aren't gradual. They accelerate silently, imperceptibly, until the first crisis strikes. Then momentum carries it further, faster, beyond containment. The alliances that seem stable wobble under strain. The so-called neutral players are forced to pick sides. Signals sent as cooperation become warnings. You see it in markets. You see it in diplomacy. And soon, you will see it where it matters most on the ground, in human terms, in real choices that cannot be undone. Because when one system bends, the connected systems strain, and no one knows which snap will trigger the next cascade. The system now faces three trajectories. One, asterisk, asterisk, adjustment. Asterisk, asterisk, small corrections, policies realigned, leverage balanced, the shock is absorbed, flexibility restored. A fragile equilibrium, but one that holds if all parties act with restraint. Two, asterisk, asterisk, erosion. Asterisk, asterisk, pressure compounds. Constraints tighten. Choices shrink further. Institutions buckle under repeated stress. Autonomy slips away quietly. What seems sustainable unravels over time, unnoticed until it's too late. Three, asterisk, asterisk, rupture. Asterisk, asterisk, a sudden cascade. Economic shocks, diplomatic confrontations, symbolic acts all collide. The system fractures. Alliances snap. The costs are immediate and undeniable. No warning sufficient. Which path unfolds is not yet clear. The signals are mixed. The pressure's uneven. The actors cautious but not coordinated. And here's the point. Waiting for clarity is itself a decision. Every day of inaction nudges the system further down one trajectory or another. All three possibilities are real. All three are dangerous. All three are already in motion. Nothing is settled. Nothing is safe. The choices you see are already constrained. The system moves quietly, invisibly, yet relentlessly. Signals accumulate faster than responses. Leverage tightens like a coil you cannot unwind. And the next shock? It won't announce itself. It won't knock politely. It will arrive precisely where you least expect it, and it will force a choice that wasn't meant to be yours. Watching passively is no longer an option. Understanding the mechanisms is not enough. The only way to stay ahead is to trace the patterns, anticipate the pressures, and see the connections others ignore. Because once the cascade begins, the window closes. And the cost of delay is not theoretical. It is immediate, real, human. If you want to see how this plays out next, how leverage, alignment, and hidden mechanisms collide, you need to follow the next stage. The system is accelerating, and every silent shift is a step closer to a point of no return. Do not blink. Do not look away. The story isn't over. It has only begun.